Hello friends, welcome to my channel. This is Abhirami and I am here to discuss with you about today's topic, that is the clinical anatomy related to the brachial plexus. Okay, so before we start with the clinical anatomy, first let me explain what is brachial plexus. Okay, so the brachial plexus is a network of nerves that arise from the spinal cord and they go through the cervicoaxillary canal in the neck and they go over the first rib and they pass deep into the armpit. Okay, and they are made up of the lower four spinal nerves in the cervical region and the first thoracic nerve. Okay, so this is actually a small map of the brachial plexus. So these are the lower four nerves of the cervical region, that is the C5, C6, C7 and C8, and one thoracic nerve at the end. Okay, actually the C8, that is the 8th cervical nerve, doesn't arise from the 8th cervical vertebrae. Actually there is no 8th cervical vertebrae. Each cervical nerve arises above the numerically corresponding vertebra. So that way C8 arises below the 7 cervical vertebrae and after that T1 is present. Okay, so there is no 8th cervical vertebra. Okay, so the roots of C5 and C6 together form the superior trunk. Okay, and C7 forms the middle trunk and C8 and T1 together form the inferior trunk, and the anterior divisions of the superior trunk and the middle trunk forms the lateral cord, and the posterior divisions of all three superior, middle and inferior trunk forms the posterior cord, and the inferior trunk on its anterior branch give rise to the medial cord. Okay, and the posterior cord gives rise to the radial and axillary branches, and the lateral cord give rise to the musculocutaneous and the median branch, and the medial cord gives rise to the ulnar branch and the median branch. Okay, so that is a small map of the brachial plexus. Now let's talk about the first thing in the clinical anatomy, that is the Erb's paralysis. Okay, so the Erb's paralysis occurs when there is injury to the upper trunk of the brachial plexus at the Erb's point where 6 nerves pass. So this is the Erb's point. So the root of the C5 and root of C6 are over here, and then the nerve to subclavius, and suprascapular nerve also coincide here, and the anterior division and posterior division of the superior trunk also coincide here. So those are the 6 nerves that are passing through this region, and if this region is damaged, it leads to Erb's paralysis. Okay, so what can be the cause for Erb's paralysis? So the cause of Erb's paralysis is the undue separation of the head from the shoulder. Okay, so this happens when there is a birth injury, or it can happen during anesthesia, or it can happen because of a fall on the shoulder. Okay, and the main nerves that are affected here are from the root of C5, and partly the root of C6 is also affected, and the muscles that are affected mainly are brachialis, brachioradialis, deltoid and the biceps. Okay, and the muscles that are partly affected here are the supraspinatus, infraspinatus and supinata. Okay, so what is the deformity caused here because of the Erb's paralysis? Actually the Erb's paralysis leads to deformity on the arm. The deformity is the medial rotation of the arm and adduction of the arm, and the pronation and extension of the forearm. Okay, so these two are the deformity of the Erb's paralysis. So this is an example of a person with Erb's paralysis. So this deformity is called as Porter's tip hand or policeman's tip hand. Okay, and the disability that is caused by the Erb's paralysis is that you cannot abduct your arm, or you cannot laterally rotate your arm, and the forearm cannot be flexed and the forearm cannot be supinated. Also the bicep jerks and the supinator jerks are lost, and there is a loss of sensation over a small region in the lower part of the deltoid muscle. Okay, so these are the disability caused by the Erb's paralysis. So now let's talk about the second thing in the clinical anatomy, that is the clump case paralysis. So during clump case paralysis, the lower trunk of the brachial plexus is damaged. So this is in opposite to the Erb's paralysis, where the upper trunk of the brachial plexus was damaged. So the clump case paralysis is caused because of the undue abduction of the arm, and this can happen because of a birth injury or because someone falls from a very high level with something clutched in their hands. The nerves that are mainly affected here are T1, and those which are partly affected are C8. Okay, so C8 roots and T1 roots are affected. And the muscles that are paralyzed here are the intrinsic muscles of the hand, which are supplied by the T1, and the C8 supplies the ulnar flexors of the wrist and fingers, so those are also affected here. So those muscles are also paralyzed. Okay, and the deformity here is that the people with clump case paralysis have an claw hand because of the unopposed action of the long flexors and extensors of the fingers. Okay, so this causes hyperextension in the metacarpophalangeal joints and flexion in the interphalangeal joints. This region is in hyperextension and the interphalangeal joints are in flexion. So this is how the claw hand is formed. Okay, and the disability here is first the claw hand. The next thing is the cutaneous anesthesia and analgesia of the ulnar side of the forearm. So there is a loss of feeling over there. Okay, and the third thing is the Horner syndrome. So this happens because the sympathetic fibers which travel to the head and neck are affected because they also come out of the spinal cord through the T1 nerve. Okay, so T1 root, they come out of the spinal cord through the T1 root, so they are also affected. So this leads to ptosis, that means the drooping of eyelids. So you can see a picture of that here. It leads to miosis, which means the excessive contraction of the pupil of the eye, and it leads to anhidrosis, which means the absence of sweating. Okay, and it also leads to the enophthalmos, that means the posterior displacement of the eye, and it leads to the loss of the ciliospinal reflex. Okay, so these are all because the sympathetic fibers get damaged. Okay, so the fourth and fifth disability are the vasomotor changes and the trophic changes. So the vasomotor changes means the parts of the hand which have lost the sensation, there the arteriolar dilation takes place, and because of that those parts get warm, and also because of the damage to the sympathetic fibers, these parts which have sensory loss do not have sweating. Now let's talk about the trophic changes. When a patient has the clump case paralysis for a long time, then they get dry and scaly skin, and also the nails are cracked easily because of the atrophy of the pulp of the fingertips. Okay. Now let's talk about the third thing, that is the injury to the nerve of the serratus anterior. So the nerve of the serratus anterior is also called as the nerve of Bell. Okay, so the injury to the serratus anterior can be caused by sudden pressure on the shoulder or because of carrying heavy loads on the shoulder. Okay, this leads to the winging of scapula. So winging of scapula means the medial border and the inferior angle of the scapula get unduly prominent, and pushing and punching actions cannot be made. Usually, if there is no injury to the serratus anterior, then this muscle pulls the medial border of the scapula and aligns it with the thoracic wall. Okay, so because of the injury to the serratus anterior, the medial border gets unduly prominent. So the disability here is that pushing and punching movements cannot be done. If pushing movements are done, then the winging of scapula can be seen clearly. Okay, so this is the picture of the winging of scapula. And this leads to disability wherein you cannot raise your hand above 90 degrees. That is, the overhead abduction of the arm is not possible because of the winging of scapula. Now let's talk about the last two, that is the injury to the lateral cord and the injury to the medial cord. So the cause for the injury to the lateral cord is the dislocation of the humerus. And the cause for the injury to the medial cord is the subcoracoid dislocation of the humerus. So subcoracoid dislocation of the humerus means anterior dislocation of the humerus. So there are 4 types of anterior dislocation of the humerus, and subcoracoid is one of them. Okay, the nerves that are affected because of the injury to the lateral cord are the musculocutaneous nerve and the lateral root of the median nerve. Okay, do you remember that flow chart? We had 5 branches there: the musculocutaneous, and then the axillary, median, and then the ulnar and radial. So in that, the musculocutaneous nerve and the lateral root of the median nerve are damaged, and the muscles that are paralyzed because of this are the biceps and coracobrachialis, and all muscles supplied by the median nerve except those muscles of the hand. Okay, and in the injury to the medial cord, the nerves that are mostly affected are the medial root of the median nerve and the ulnar nerve. Okay, and muscles that are paralyzed because of the injury to these nerves are the muscles supplied by the ulnar nerve and the 5 muscles of the hand supplied by the median nerve. Okay, so the deformity and disability of the injury to the lateral cord include the mid-prone forearm, loss of flexion of forearm, loss of flexion of the wrist, and sensory loss on the radial side of the forearm. And the vasomotor changes that take place here are that the parts which have a sensory loss are warmer because of the arteriolar dilation, and also there is no sweat on the parts that have a sensory loss, so those parts become dry. Okay, and the same for the trophic changes. The skin becomes dry and scaly, and the nails crack easily because of the atrophy of the pulp of the fingers. Okay, so those include the deformity and disability of the injury to the lateral cord. Now let's talk about the deformity and disability because of the injury to the medial cord. So because of the injury to the medial cord, it leads to the claw hand and sensory loss of the ulnar side of the forearm. Okay, so this is the ulnar side of the forearm and this is the radial side of the forearm. So there is a sensory loss to the ulnar side of the forearm. So these two are opposite to each other. Here there is a sensory loss on the radial side of the forearm. Here there is a sensory loss on the ulnar side of the forearm. So that's all for today. That is the end of this session. Thank you for listening to me. And if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe and comment on it. And if you have doubts in bones of the upper limb, you can visit my previous videos. Thank you.